All right, welcome everyone to this next episode of Your Music, Your Story. Today we're talking with Josh Hatfield.
Hello. Excited to be here. Thanks for having me too.
Welcome to the party.
This is a good time. I'm already having a blast.
So I'll let you introduce yourself. Like, who are you playing for? Because you're playing with a couple, right?
That is true. Dang. I should have prepared that answer already. Dang. There's a lot, I guess. Right now, for sure, I know I'm playing with. Actually, I don't even know for sure. I have one show coming up. I'm trying to think if I have shows coming up. That's the only thing I can think of. And I am playing with a band called Ghetto on Fire, and we played for a long time. But we have a show coming up sometime. I should say it's a wedding, not necessarily a show. So never mind. Nobody's invited. But I am playing with them to answer the question, and then the B Sharps is a band that I had started in high school with my best buddy Robert, and so my brother's in that one, and a few other great members, Crystal and Benz and Adam, and they're all busy. They're all doing their own thing. There's Crystal and the Sassy Cats, and there's Jay. Well, actually, my brother, he lives in Arizona. He wishes he could be doing things, but he can't because he's in Arizona. So when he's here, though, he does all types of fun stuff and plays with me in the Maxis too. And so we also have that band that is 100% super busy right now, and they're not busy right now, but we want to be busy, and then I play every Sunday at a church, AME. Quinn AME in Moreno Valley.
Do you got gospel chops going?
I wish. Man, I watch those videos every day hoping I can pick up a single chop, and it's yet to happen. But I like to pretend. I like to think that I know what I'm doing there. Although I have been there for a while, too. I've been playing probably in churches for specifically in the AME for probably 14 years at this point.
And where's that one at?
That one's off of Alessandro. It's in Moreno Valley. Quinn AME is the name of that one. And when I had started playing in churches, though, I guess I was in Fontana to begin with. I had met up actually with, I had worked as a teacher. Well, before I got into teaching, I was a after-school program person. I'd help with like halftime and prime time over at the elementary schools. And it was through the YMCA. And so when I had that, you could also get access to the YMCA's gym. And so you'd go and work out for free. And I just happened to meet an instructor there the very first time that Ashley, the missus, the wife, the significant other, we had gone, and we were the only people that showed up. And this one gentleman came down and he's like, "Hey, you guys want to do a step aerobics class?" And because we were the only ones in the room, like we couldn't. So. Yeah. So we were like, yes, let's do that. And then it ended up being like just a wonderful relationship and friendship, and it's been like 14 years since. That person ended up becoming my minister of music. That's Jonathan Sanders, and he's somebody I followed in ministry for like the last, like I said, 14 years. And he started me over in Fontana at Bethel AME, and then we probably played, I don't know, like 20 or 30 different churches between now and then. A lot of it just kind of just going one-offs and doing one-out things.
Like they need to fill in, or they need something?
Or there's like a festival going on, or they're having like an awakening, and there's like just choirs and churches and all types of groups from different places coming in. Like San Diego will have like a central hub, or LA will have a central hub, and so every year there'll be like a big deal that they'll do, and so they'll have 10, 20 different churches come out, and it's just a huge concert, pretty much is what it is, and it's just a blast, and everybody's having a grand old time. And so, we did that for a long time. And then he ended up getting kind of plucked from where he was at in Fontana, and he got moved out to LA and ended up doing like big church stuff out there in LA. Okay. And then that's when I sort of took a break. But even then, that was only maybe a half a year of a break. And then he came back to Moreno Valley and asked if I wanted to come back with him. And
I'm there, dude.
I was like, yeah, let's do it. and then ever since. And then even Jay, my brother, he was able to come play bass for us for a couple of years before he moved out to Arizona and do the gospel church in too. So. He definitely picked up some chops. Jay went in with a 4-string bass, and he left with a 5-string bass. I'm not even joking. He bought a 5-string just to be able to do the churchiness. And so, I'm sure he uses it for plenty of other things, but I know a big pull at the time was being able to get that extra B.
So here's my funny story about him. So the Undercover Monsters came by one time, and we recorded some stuff, one of their 3 songs years ago, and then he came by, just whatever. So I had my 5-string, and he was just looking at it. So I don't know if maybe he hadn't gone to the 5-string yet, but he was And then I had an 8-string just because it was cheap and I bought it.
Oh,
like a guitar, sorry, not a bass.
Oh, okay. I was like,
but then he picks it up and goes, "Why are there so many strings? This is dumb." Left door at the 5-string. He didn't say anything about that, but
of course. And then back to adoring. Oh, Jay.
So apparently he only liked 4 and 6. Those were the numbers.
I'm sorry. Yeah, you offended him with your 8-string. It's Sounds like Jay though.
It's a dumb. I'm not gonna lie. It's a dumb guitar, but it's fun. Just.
I'm sure it has its perfect moments. I wouldn't know how to mess with that. That's another thing that what I was gonna say with Jay is that he would switch guitars because like he wasn't just playing bass there, and so I wondered why he would be upset with or not upset, but I don't know, whatever his little thing was with that guitar. But
it made me chuckle.
Yeah, Jay's funny. Like just good. Just so many good stories. Like that's what it is. Like him getting brought up because I don't see his ass as much as I used to. So now I just think of the whatever dumb thing that we did or whatever dumb thing somebody saw him do. And
then I'll call him up. We can do one of these.
Oh man, that would be great. Because the phone blew. Oh, perfect. He needs to be on the show.
Like I heard what Dave. He's like, yeah. Because when I started, Dave's like, here's the one that I did. And I think he talked with Jay about like going to all you can eat buffets or something like that. Or something about a plate's never done unless you have like 10 or something.
Oh yeah, it's a 7-plate minimum. That's it. Yeah. Or I think it's an 8-plate. I think I misspoke. It's an 8-plate minimum if you're at a buffet with Jay. And then of course, depending on the buffet, you also may be witness to the fountains of Jay. But otherwise, at the very least, you're going to see 8 plates roll through the front of that man and be emptied. So yeah, because he's got to get that money worth. He doesn't get gypped at a buffet. I've never seen it happen. So
let's talk about the B Sharp. So what's the B Sharps doing? Are you guys playing shows? Just kind of.
That's funny. Robert actually just texted me this morning, our singer guitar player guy, or like the main person that would write the songs. And he hit me up this morning. He was like, "Hey, do you want to write a song?" And it's probably been a year since we've even played. I think the last time we played was December 13th of last year, and that. Last time I saw anybody, I mean, as far as like the group goes, all in the same room. So yeah, we really haven't done much, but like this room that has all these microphones and like all of the capabilities that Robert has at his house with all of his studio gear, like he just wants to record stuff at this point and see about getting ideas out. And I was like, wow, we should do that. And it sounds like a great plan, but that's the thing about plans is they always sound good and they never they always take a long time to like happen or start or do or follow through.
Did Jay play guitar or did he play bass?
He was doing bass on that one.
Okay.
And because we had Doug that played and he ended up leaving a few years in, and then we had Jay come in afterward. And that was an easy transition because again he lived in the back of the house, so it was easy to knock on the door. Yeah. Go get that bass.
I know when you're home, dude.
I know where you live. We worked at the same time too, so or at the same place. We had the same schedule, like work schedule. So because we both worked at Fender for a long time, the factory in Corona.
Oh really? So you both? I didn't know that.
Yeah. That was for years. Not anymore. I had for a while, probably between 2011 and maybe 2014 is when I was there. But during that time period, I had gotten my bachelor's in business and management. That's what I thought I was going to do. I thought I was going to do something businessy and management-y with either music or bands or something. And then somehow found my way at Fender at that time because of Ghetto on Fire. Marco and Johnny, the guitar player and bass player there, had shown up a week before when they had like a wide opening show up and you get to be interviewed on the spot type of deal.
You're like, okay.
And then, and so that's what, so I came down the next week after they told me that and started working in the inner sand department. So we were just sanding all of the bodies before they get to paint.
So now, was it cool, or was it kind of one of those things like, this is awesome, but you're kind of doing the same thing, and it's just not as awesome as you'd hoped it would have been?
It was definitely cool, and the best part about it is being able to tell anybody that you ask or that asks like where you work, that you work at Fender. But then if they were to like see where I had worked for the first year. So Intersand is what I was talking about being the first department that I was in, and it's just dust. Like nobody, like it's just a cloud and then dust. Yeah, you have you get your sanding hand. I forget the name of it, but there was just the constant vibration from the sanders never left your hand after 8 hours. It was just always there. So your hand was always vibrating no matter 1 o'clock in the morning or 5 p.m. Like it just was that feeling. But that was just that department. I ended up going to paint. My brother Jay, he was in paint, buff and polish, and so he got to make the guitars look shiny. So that was probably a little cooler, less dusty. Still dusty, but not as much as Intersand. It was just coming into like an environment of cloud and I'm sure whatever the coating is on the guitars is chemical-y, but we get masks and it's all nice. But the fun part was probably the final department. So I had eventually got to be a manager of buff and polish, but before that I was in final, which is where they test and tune the guitar. So they get all set up and then they come down the line, and then for a while I was one of the guys that would test it and tune it and set it up, get it to spec.
So you just kind of play it? Like how does that, or just running like frequencies and all that?
They don't really want you to play it, but of course everybody there is like a shredder for the most part. And so they'll play, like that's how they'll test it out, and they'll for sure test it, but like I'm not a guitar player, so I'm not like shredding or anything. I don't know.
And
do. I knew I had to learn the notes of the strings, which now that I'm going to say that out loud, I'm probably going to mess it up. I have to have it in front of me. I know it's like E, A, D, G, B, E, right? Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that took me a while, but I had to. Yeah, I had to infiltrate them because they smelled me a mile away. They're like, this guy doesn't play guitar, but somehow I managed
to get past our interview process.
Yeah. How is he in final? How is he testing it? Nobody actually asked. I was very nice. I think I was a friendly person, so everybody was excited to have me on board. But I also was like one of the final guys' like favorite people. Anytime they saw my name go down, it was to the point where, of course, there's an inspector at the end of the line that double checks whatever you didn't get dumb, or that you didn't screw it up, or that it wasn't like half-assed or something. And so there's another person who checks your work. And so I did get to the point where at the end of that line, like people were looking forward to the JH coming down.
Because they knew it wasn't going to be
because it was going to be fine. Yeah.
Or so I don't want to say other people are garbage.
Yeah. Right. It wasn't terrible. Everybody was great. And yeah, just that they didn't have to put as much time into looking into it. So that was cool. But then the real cream of the crop would be then getting into custom shop. And that was where we always wanted to go. But then I know while I was there, at least, they had a wide layoff. And I was on night shift by the time I got to be, I guess, managing the buff and polish department. And so they got rid of like 3,000 people. It wasn't like 2 or 3. It was like the entire night shift. And so I was included in that group. So at that point is when I left, but I had my bachelor's in management at that time. And then Jay was like, you were in education for so long. Like you did all of that after school, halftime, primetime stuff through the YMCA, and you have a bachelor's now. And then also while I was in college, I was actually doing English tutoring. So I would go to the English, area, or I guess anytime anybody would come into the writing lab and need help, I would be there and I'd help them with essays, or I'd help them with reading, or whatever their assignment was. And so I was getting paid through RCC at the time to do that. And so Jay was like, you've been surrounded by like education your entire life. You could be a sub now that you have a bachelor's. You can just go and take this test really quick and like see if maybe you want to do that. Because I was super down, like super depressed. Like I thought that was my life, was music, business, and I was a manager. I was like, this is it. This is exactly like Fender's awesome.
I'm done.
I made it. And then that happened. And so yeah, Jay kind of got me back on course, sort of in that sense. And that helped a lot, because with that I was getting into subbing. And then I started subbing for a good couple of years in just in the area here in Riverside. Jay and I and Ashley and a lot of us, we all went to Alvord. I don't know. I know you're Moreno Valley.
Yeah. So I grew up in Death Valley. So
oh, okay. So never mind. Yeah. Well, out here, yeah, there's Alvord, and that was where we all went and graduated from, which is just right down the street here. And so that was where I was like, all right, I guess I could just start subbing back down the street and go back to the same schools that I attended and all that good stuff. So I probably subbed for 4 years, and I wanted to go to every grade level. I wanted to do all of the subjects, because I didn't even know what, like, am I going to teach math? Because even before I got my bachelor's, I had gotten 2 associates. I got one math and science, one in administration and stuff. And so I was like, I had the ideas, but I didn't like have like the actual math degree. I didn't have the actual like English degree, but I had like enough to be like, well, I could probably do it and figure out if it'll work out. So the very first long term assignment that I had, because for the most part, subbing was day-to-day. But you always try to not do that, because subbing day-to-day sucks, and like looking for a job every day sucks, and like not knowing if you have one the next day sucks. And so if you get to do long-term assignments, that's the bee's knees. And that's when you're in the same group with the same kids for like a month or whatever, a couple weeks.
Nice.
And so that ends up being awesome, because that's where I found out that I wanted to be a middle school teacher. I had done a lot of day-to-day ones, and the very first time I did middle school was in Beaumont. And I remember I called Ashley.
So Beaumont from here? So you went here and then drove out to Beaumont?
Oh yeah. So for a while, yeah, actually, a good couple years I was in Beaumont doing rough. Subbing, but that was where I was able to find the most consistent subbing jobs.
Regular work.
Yeah, just regular wise, because I guess not a lot of people wanted to go out and sub in Beaumont, and so it was fine with me. I had a really good friend, Kim Monig, who did the HR department over there, and so she was able to get me started sooner at that site than any of the other ones. And so that was one of the other reasons I wanted to go to Beaumont, is because I knew I'd get started sooner. But yeah, so once I got there, though, the first place that I did was a middle school. And And I remember I called Ashley when I left, and I was like, I'm never coming back. This is the worst day of my life.
Just
and,
like kids, everything?
Oh, the kids were garbage. Like, I mean, which is the case. Like, if you're a sub, and then even as me, like as a kid, remembering subs come in, like that's what we were, was garbage. And so
what you do to a sub.
that they deserve it. That's what they get for being a sub. Like, so I get it, but it still didn't stop me from like wanting to like tear out my hair and go out and never want to come back and run away and think my life over again. And so I called Ashley, and then the very next day, that principal, he came back and he was like, hey, Josh, I have this math teacher who left. Do you want to do this for like a month? And again, the day before was the worst day of my life. And then the next day was like, well, this is what I wanted, was to be able to get something where I don't have to freak out every day.
Was there a hesitation?
There definitely was. I told him I'd get back to him the next day. And he was like, yeah, I understand. And I remember I was talking, and he was intimidating too. Like I felt like I needed to say yes because he was like a big football dude. Who I guess had like, done college and then ended up not quite making it and then ended up
now he's a
principal at middle school in Beaumont. So, but yeah, he's still like a big scary dude. And I almost just was like, yeah, whatever you want. I'll just, I'll say yes.
Just don't come beat me up in the parking lot.
Yeah, exactly. But he was super nice too. And it was fine. And he was like, just come back the next day if you want to do it. And if not, it's fine. I know, I don't know where he said this, but he was like, I know people have said good things about you from being here. And I'm like,
you're like, nice, I guess.
Okay, cool.
Guess you rubbed off on someone.
So must have. And in that case, I came back the next day, and then that was the month. And that's when I found out it's not so much like the day-to-day that you have to focus on. It's really getting to know kids, and you have to have time more than a day to get to know anybody. And and that helped a lot. So that made me realize like, oh, middle school doesn't suck. Like, I mean, it does. It's terrible. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't have like this dark cloud anymore in the sense that like it's impossible and you'll never survive it. You have to have a lot of patience. And that's the one thing I hear from a lot of people that are like, what do you do? Oh, middle school. Bless your soul. Like, I just don't know how you do it. Like, I just, and so, but I get it. It's just a lot of patience. And it's just.
You're teaching that age where puberty's coming in.
Oh, yeah.
Self-esteem is always up and down.
Yes, it's so weird on so many levels. Like, and then what didn't help too, and this is just a reflection of the last couple of years, because I had started before the pandemic. I had taught 2018 and 19, and the pandemic happened, and then I subbed again because I'd only had temporary contracts, and I still only have a temporary contract where I'm at now, which means you only get to be at that site for the year that you're there. And then afterward, they could invite you, or they could be like, hey, that was fun.
So you're guaranteed for at least that year,
just that
whatever.
Year.
After that, it's a possibility, but you still don't know?
Yeah. And a lot of the times for the people that are on temporary contracts, the districts don't let people know until the summer. They'll finish the school year in June at the end of their temporary contract and not know if they're coming back until sometime in summer. In fact, that's happened to me where I didn't know until the week before the school year started.
How do you
second
plan?
Year.
I guess
you don't plan. You just hope that you have a lot of people that help and are supportive, which has been my case. And I hope that's been the case for a lot of new teachers, but that was my experience as a new teacher, was that I had a crap ton of support and a lot of people that were like, oh, here's a lesson. Oh, here's an entire unit. Oh, here's everything that you'll need for this. And it wasn't so much me having to figure things out on my own. It was a lot of guidance and a lot of help. And so, that is one thing that I think difference-wise between before the pandemic and after the pandemic happened is like kids lost that help. Kids lost that support during those 2 years because they weren't in the rooms anymore with us. And they were in their own world of whatever that was, and that world wasn't always the best, and sometimes it was great, sometimes people had the best time during the pandemic, but more often than not, and with the demographic that I'm dealing with in Redlands, the opposite has been the case, where it has been like so detrimental to have these kids out of the classrooms for so long that it's not just academics. Like we see that we took tests, we took our benchmarks and the state standards the year we came back. And we got those results this year. And so we see that obviously it's the lowest that it's been in years. But it's not just academic, like it's just social, emotional. That's even worse, I think, because kids don't know how to interact in a room with like 30 people again, because that wasn't the case anymore. And so you have all of these emotions, and then you have all of these 30 different lives. And I'm just talking by periods. I have like 140 throughout my 6 periods. But for every period, though, you have 30 or so kids that are bringing their life experiences
all
from
the issues
everywhere. And like you said, they're barely figuring out how to function as a 12-year-old. And so now you've added all of these things. And then you want them to understand what a coordinate adjective is and how to differentiate between when you're using cumulative sentences and when you're, and so like, there's a struggle when it gets into the classroom, and so that part's the balance of getting to know your kids. And that's what I guess, long story short, I guess getting around to where I was trying to start with is realizing that getting to know the people that you're in front of is so important. And it helps. There's a lot more buy-in, and there's a lot more trust, and a lot more caring, I guess, on both sides when they feel like that's what's being given to them. You know?
I mean, I did poorly, I'll be honest. I barely even graduated high school, and everything was just a big failure. But yeah, we always have those teachers where they just didn't care. Shut up, you're you're the 11 to right before lunch class. Just do what you get out, shut up, go away. I mean, you just didn't care.
Yeah.
There were some in college where like that, you just don't feel useless. Your class just feels like, well, what am I doing here?
Yeah. And
it's hard.
It's upsetting because the kids don't know why. And like, it's not their fault that Professor so-and-so's checked out or is like not giving a fuck for the day, or whatever happened at home. And kids have to deal with it.
He's come and take it out on you.
Yeah. And that happens a lot. Like I know, like even where I'm at now, like the kids will come in during lunch and say, oh man, so-and-so had a bad day. I can tell because
just how they're acting.
Yeah, they're just all mad at their classes or yelling at whoever, and yeah, it's just a lot of frustrations in general. And so it's not so much the kids making it difficult, but it's teachers that have checked out also and struggling and figuring out how to navigate this new version of teaching too, because it's changed. It really has over the last 2 years. Like we thought we were getting better with every year, and then this sort of hiccup sort of effed everything up, and so now we got to recalibrate kind of how it's going. But this year, as far as the second year after the pandemic, is so much better than the first year. I mean,
you've had that year under that people have gotten used to school again.
I think that helps. I mean, just as like a teacher being able to be back in the classroom and remember what that's like, and then having the kids back in the classroom and what that's like, and then just getting through a year of whatever like quote quote normal would be, because I think last year was supposed to be that, right? I was getting back to normal. And as far-fetched of an idea that was, like, it still was at least getting us structure, and that's what last year was. I don't know if there was any order to it, but there was some structure to the idea that we had 185 days that we went to a classroom and we did things when we were there. So that helped, because this year is so much better, because in those 185 days last year, I couldn't tell you how many fights. I couldn't tell you like the lack of empathy, which isn't like anybody's fault, but like even to the point too where it was damaging other people just to be funny, like property or like there were these trends actually. I hate to sound like an old person with this damn social media and how it's ruined the children, but it's so
but
true.
I'm about to gripe about it.
But yes, also this is about to happen. So like, TikTok, I've heard about it. Don't have one, but I hear about the TikToking, and one of the ones was like taking the masks, the string masks, and you take them out of the mask itself. So you just have the string that goes around your ear, whatever that is, the elastic, I should say. And so they pretty much like, I don't know how to describe it, but they tighten it out and then very quickly rub that string back and forth over anything.
Like try and start it, like how you're trying to start a fire.
Like you would assume it would be for fire reasons, but no, what they're doing is just cutting through whatever it is they're doing. So they're going so fast that it's cutting through, like they've done desks, like straight up cut through a desk.
Oh, geez.
Or cut through like chunks of the plastic of the chair. So like the backing, there was this one kid who came in, and it was in my class that he told me, because it was from a class that he came in before, but the back was cut to the point where he had leaned back and it snapped. So like he didn't, like the kid before or whoever the class was, like was able to cut it to the point where it was still there, but nobody paid enough attention to see that it was only just barely hanging on. And so the kid went to go sit down and the back was just snapped off. And that kind of crap happened all the time. So it was, there was a case where the toilet in the boys' bathroom was kicked off of the piping, and the plumbing, I should say, and water came up. And so there was a kid that came in and then slipped on the water, and then like an ambulance had to get called. And the bathrooms were done for like a month, as plumbing had to get redone for a friggin' 12-year-old boy bathroom at like this campus in Redlands. And I'm like, why? Oh, because you saw somebody do that on TikTok. Dumb. Like, it's just the dumbest stuff. Like, they were stealing like COVID tests because we were giving them out for free.
Yeah.
And it was just to do it. It was just to be like,
because you could.
I did it. Yeah. And it was stuff like that. Oh man, actually better stories than any of those ones. there was and this was last year, there was a kid who had brought edibles to the class and didn't say anything, of course.
Now, edibles, I'm assuming, are illegal in any form.
Probably.
Because it's California.
Yeah. And I bet even more so if you're 12, or on a school campus, right? So we're like regular ass Wednesday.
Yeah.
Just middle. And again, I think I've said ambulance in the last 2 minutes twice already. But yeah, ambulance was called in this case because kids had overdosed to the point where they were freaking out. Like the kid didn't, of course, who brought it like from home, didn't say anything to anybody. It was just cookies. So like he brought all these cookies and was giving them out to people. And the freak out was insane. Like, because I didn't back up. They were 6th graders. So this isn't like an 8th grader. This isn't even almost like maybe they're about to graduate at the end of 8th grade and they'll be in freshman year.
Whatever.
No. It was like the middle of freaking year. It wasn't like a big hurrah for the end of the year even. And yeah, just kids just freaking out on weed cookies. So anyway, that was fun. But at least that was hidden. So there was actually one other case, and this will be the last story, so we can move on to, fun stuff, music or things. Okay. But yeah, the other story was where I was in a class teaching, and in the back of the room, a girl had decided to have the most giant cloud of smoke coming out of her mouth and didn't go outside. Like I had a door open.
Like had vaping?
Oh, vaping. Yeah. So full on just vape pen cartridge in the classroom. And blew the cloud out the door thinking that I wasn't going to see it because I was looking down at the time. I was looking down at my lesson. I was reading whatever it was. And so as I'm looking down, she's trying to hurry and get a quick puff out. And because I look up, the friend that she's with sees that I'm looking and thinks that by him standing up in front of the gigantic cloud of smoke.
You won't see my cloud.
Yeah, you won't see what's happening behind me. And so it was like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, because the last thing I really want to do is like
send him home
and get anybody in trouble. Because like that, like obviously there's a fine line of like, yeah, you shouldn't be doing that, and we don't want to condone drug use, and like I don't even want to make it seem like it's funny, like as a 12-year-old, but at the same time it's kind of funny. but also like it gets me upset because I realize, and this was something that I had heard a middle school teacher tell me. And I realized it stuck probably because of what he said. But he said the same shit you do now is the same shit you're going to do in high school. Oh, yeah. And it was scary to hear it later. Because like at the time, as a 12-year-old, it's like, well, okay, old person. Like,
shut up, dude.
Yeah, right? I'm way cooler than you, so stop talking to me. But I don't know. There was something about that stuck with me, though, for real. And it wasn't like I was like doing drugs or anything in middle school, but still, it was a thought that I didn't have in my mind before that person said it. And I was like, oh, cool. That's interesting. And so those incidences, though, when I see it happening, that's what I think about, though. I'm like, oh, man, I really hope that is just like a temporary thing. Like, or that somebody's able to be that person that they need in order to get them to the right track that they need. Right. Like, cause I'll take that kind of stuff personally, and I'll be like, oh man, well, obviously I failed. Like I wasn't the person that kid needed for this year. And I'm hoping somewhere down the line it'll make sense. But yeah, that's probably the hardest part, I guess. Not that was one of the questions, but now that we're there, hardest part about teaching is that part.
So now are you working so you're on a contract basis year to year.
Right.
Does that lead into a full-time teacher position, or you still have to apply? Like, how does that work?
There's a lot of hope that it leads into it. And every year you're just waiting for the district to say, oh yeah, you can have that spot back. Or the district will be like, oh man, we ran out of the funds for that spot. And yeah, we can't even have a temporary, let alone a full-time.
So it's a teacher that's quit, whatever, they're not there. So they're missing a teacher, and you're just filling in until...
That would be different. If a teacher had quit, that means that there was you can kind of consider each campus as like just a numbers game, really. And every campus has a certain number of teachers that they're allowed to have. And then any number outside of that is temporary, right? Because maybe the numbers are going to fluctuate this year, and so we'll temporarily need you this year.
So there's more students now.
Because but next year maybe those students are going to go back down to the average that we've expected, and our normal number of teachers are going to be okay. The temp contract that I've been on has been a temp contract for 11 years. So it's good. Yeah, but it's like, obviously you don't need a temporary teacher. You have the numbers for a full-time teacher, but that's where the district comes into play. And it's not that the campus can be like, hey, I need a full-time. It's the district saying, well...
So is it like a money game, I'd assume?
Yeah,
it's probably cheaper to pay you on a temporary contract than make you a full-time, probably?
Well, it's the same rate, but the difference is after full-time, it's the safety, because you get tenure after 2 years. So once you get your...
2 years?
2 years, yeah.
I didn't know. I thought it was like 10, 11 or something.
That's what I keep hearing people say, that and I bet a lot of people wish that were the case, because then you get the teachers that are like, after 2 years, they're good. Like you have to like punch a kid in the face and get caught in order to get fired, like after your tenure.
Then they might just question.
Right, and then then even you might get away with it. But still, that's what tenure is after 2 years, and so that would be the goal. But you can't get that until after you get the full-time contract. So none of my contract years that I've had count toward that. Well, they will if they did invite me back, and they were super nice about it. They could count the temporary contracts as my probationary, I guess.
But would that be up to the district, or would that the school?
That would be up to the district. So.
They could flat out just say, "Look, we don't care. That was attempted. Your time starts now."
Yeah.
Or they could say, "Okay, this backtrack, you're tenured."
Yeah.
So you could like basically start full time as a tenured.
That's true. I could, if they're really nice, or if the position comes up. Because like I said, for me, this well, not even for me, but just for anybody that's had this temporary position, it's been a temporary position for like the last 10 years. I work under another teacher who had that contract before I had it, and she said that she had that temporary contract for 4 years before eventually the full time was popped up. What had happened is another teacher left, and so that opened up a full time. So she was able to slide in. But then it still kept the temporary open. So then
that's when you came in.
And that's when I was, yeah. So
but it seems like after, so I guess technically I would have been 15 years they've had that. I mean,
but exactly, yeah.
Yeah, you need that teacher at that point.
Yeah, definitely hasn't been temporary for the last 15 years. Like it's been full time. So, but that's just part of the game, and that's just one of the ways they play it. And it's weird understanding how there's like this bureaucracy to teaching and the politics behind, just contracts and unions and so much more than just like we're going to read The Outsiders today. Like there's so much more than that. Like I wish that was that. It was that easy. But
so because I know teachers are union. Yeah. As a temporary contract, are you part of the union, or because you're temporary, you're not?
No, that's a good point. Yeah, you do get to be part of the union. You still could pay union dues, but the part that doesn't help, and this has personally happened to me, where the union like comes back and like fights for you if something goes wrong, and they're like, "No, we got Josh's back."
Even as a temp, they still do that.
That doesn't happen as a temp. Oh. That's the difference. So yeah, like anything that gets contractually negotiated through the union while you're a temp still helps you. So like if any raise happens and you're a temp, you get that raise too.
But if you get fired for some shady, they're not
going to come back for you. That's the difference. So yeah, you can have any reason to be let go at any point at any time, and that's it. And union's not going to help you. So that's the one downside. But otherwise, like everything else is there. Like you still get all of the same supports in every other aspect.
That's good.
But yeah, otherwise it's just a matter of security. That's the best thing about the contract part. Just that. Because everything else is the same.
Oh, all right.
But
well, fun.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your setup you got here.
Ooh.
I see. So because one thing I don't know what I'm doing when I'm recording.
Me neither.
I just set stuff up and go, and hey,
it's the best way to
do it. I
hope
that it goes.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what kind of mics you're using here on your set.
Ooh, okay. I hope Ashley isn't listening because she's going to be very upset. Well, she's just very supportive, but also doesn't like me to.
You have what again?
Yeah, right. You went out and spent how much? You bought another what? How many of these do you need?
You said 4. I thought there was only 2.
Oh, it's like there's oh man, you know her so well. This is sounding so familiar. Yeah, we'll edit this out. It's fine. But the mics I have are AKG 414s for the top, and those ones are supposed to be geared toward. I was reading there was a frequency adjustment that the 414s had where it was supposed to be geared toward vocalists, and then there was a separate 414. So there's a 414. XLS, and then there's a 414, I can't even remember now, X2, something like that. But they're the two, I would say, like kind of standard sort of studio mic that you see a lot of studios have. And so I'm using those for my overheads. But the high frequency one I was using as a room mic for whatever reason, because I was like, oh, well, maybe it'll pick up something fancy with that little extra frequency bump or whatever. So yeah, I just have that single as a room mic. But
so the thing when we came in, you had another one that had them just standing side by side. Is that like the fit? 90-degree pair, whatever it is.
Yeah. I had that on XY bar, and so I had 314s. So I had the 414s as my overheads, and then I have 314s, a stereo pair, as another set of a room. So that way I can pick up like the reverb. It's a tiny room, but it still gets a lot of cool sound when you put it in this hallway.
Oh,
There's
really?
this hallway here for the bathroom to connect to the main room here, and it's just like an echo chamber.
It does pretty good sound.
And it's really cool. Like, it's just like a really natural reverb. And so I put those 314s there to pick that up. And then sometimes I'll even open the bathroom door because the sound will bounce.
Oh, and it'll go in
And
there.
it'll go into the bathroom, and it'll come back out through this little hallway here, and it'll just be a really interesting sound that is not captured otherwise. So I had that set up, and that's on the XY bar. And then in the kick right now, I have two. I wanted to have one on the inside, and so I have a 91 beta, and on the outside is an Audix D6. So
Now, is your beta, is that up against your front bass drum? Is that to get that beater sound, or what is
I
that?
wanted to get the beater sound. So yeah, it's exactly where it is.
Okay.
Is as close as it can be. It's a flat, and it's on kind of like a pillow at the moment. So it's as close as it can be up to the front to get that clickier. But it also gets a really good like oomph from the inside, which is really nice.
Does it pretty good? Does it stay pretty good at just staying put? Like it doesn't move around in there?
I have this thing called what is it called? I'd found it on Instagram. It was like a super kicker pillow or something like that. And it's just a foam piece, and it fits perfectly to the length of the bass drum. So it's not actually a pillow. It's just this cutout, and it has this perfect space for that mic. Almost like it was like designed
that's
for
what
it.
it was for?
Literally, yeah. So it was designed to keep it there. And it even has like Velcro. So if you wanted to like Velcro
nice.
it down, but it's so secure you don't need the Velcro. So yeah, it doesn't move. It's super, super there. And then the Audix on the outside is set up on the on the what is that thing called?
The whole port?
Mic stand. But yeah, the
stand.
horror port too. Yeah, just on the where I have it now is not where I would put it. It would be on the outside. I wouldn't, because I have the inside.
So you get it just right off
Yeah,
the port. So you're not in it, but you're not like way out.
exactly.
Because I've seen some where they've got it, it's got to be at least 6 inches out. Like, I don't understand. That just seems like a lot of...
Right. Yeah, I haven't tried it yet, which is the thing that I probably could do, because like I always wonder like why do they do that, and then I realize I could just try it and see what they hear. But for me, I've gotten so accustomed to just liking that sound that I'm like, well, I don't really want to like. If I guess I want
reason to change. If it sounds good.
If I'm feeling fancy and I want to experiment, I could. But
Have you ever tried one of the sub things? Drums or whatever they are?
I loved using the one time that I did at a show. Like it was set up at some show that we did, and it was the Yamaha like super sub something. Yeah, I loved it. I don't know what it does. I don't understand it. Like I've never looked into it, what the thing is, but I love it.
I did see a video where you can make one. Basically, you're taking like a 12-inch Celeste, like it's a speaker, and somehow it's reading when the cone vibrates, and that's you. I don't know. I just thought, I don't even like you. What does that do? It looks cool. Makes me look like you know what you're doing.
Awesome, for sure. Yeah. Well, that's cool. I'll have to look into making one, because how much do they cost? Have you looked into seeing what like a new one
they
would
were
be?
like, I want to say last time I looked, and this was a couple of years ago, they were like 300.
Oh yeah.
I wanna say.
Okay. Dang.
253.
And then to make one, that would be what? So a speaker, some wood.
Yeah. So I mean, basically, what I'm understanding was the air that's coming out is you're just somehow getting it to read basically a reverse microphone. So it's vibrating to send air out. You're getting it to read, I don't know if you're flipping this polarity, so that it's reading when it vibrates and sending sound back rather than sending sound out or something like that.
That's super interesting. I don't understand the science, which is I feel like embarrassed. Like, why don't I understand the science of drums and like how the things
How are you
make
a
it sound
drummer,
work?
dude?
Yeah. Oh man, even worse than that. Like I don't even know how to tune these things. I just bought a robot the other day, a tune bot the other day, so I could finally tune it. I think I've played drums for, I don't want to do the math, 20 something years for sure. Like I started when I was in 5th grade. Reading like music. That was the one thing I was super excited for in 5th grade, because I knew that's when you can join band. So I had started probably playing when I was in 4th grade, maybe even 3rd.
Getting practice.
Yeah, my mom's husband at the time had worked at a music shop, and so he brought over just a drum pad one day, just a Remo drum pad and some sticks, and so like that was my beginning, and I was just hitting that and waiting for 5th grade. to come around so I can be in band.
Come on.
And then, the moment that happened, it was freaking awesome. Like I joined 5th grade. It was like a matter of months. And the teacher at the school that I was at, Terrace Elementary, he was like, oh, you should go into an advanced band. Like this is up your alley.
I'm there, dude.
And I was like, done, let's do it. And so, and then it was just love ever since. And, but with that love never came the appreciation for, notes, like tuning or like intonation. And I think that comes across very well in my speaking. I have a very monotone voice as it is. And so when I apply that to the drums, I was just like, well, just put the dampeners on it and it'll be fine. Like that'll be tuned. And that's how I've lived my drumming life all the way up until about 2 weeks ago, when I finally got like a tuning thing and then realized, I love it. I had no idea how easy it could be. And I'm sure I'm still messing it up, but like the one that I got is the TuneBot Studio. And so I'm pointing like you can see it. It's over there somewhere. I'm sorry. But it's just like, have you used one? Do you know what it is?
The only one I got was the drum dial. They had like the little
I
pin.
started with that.
Okay.
And gave up.
Yeah, I was just like, that seems the sound when I did
exactly. Yeah, I was like, what is this telling me? I don't understand. And then I lost the pieces, and then it was, I didn't lose the pieces because I borrowed it from a friend, so I totally still have those, Brittany. But but
lost nothing.
All of it's here. But I gave up on those because I couldn't figure it out. Like it just wasn't working for me. And then again, replace every drum head with as many moon gels and dampeners as possible.
Gels.
Yeah.
Oh dear.
Big fan. Huge fan. Well, not anymore because they're blue. I found a new one that's orange by I don't know if I'm saying it right. Meinl.
I would go out on a limb to say you enjoy orange.
A little bit.
Okay. Just want to figure.
Paquito. Yeah. But the blue ones have been replaced by orange ones now. But the tuning part though has been super nice. Like that machine thingy finds the fundamental note of the drum somehow.
So like the shell and length, it figures out what it
on its own. You hit the thing and then it tells you, oh, fundamentally this drum is a C. And like if you say so.
Because
thanks, TuneBot.
I've never heard of such things.
It's magical. And then to add to the magic, it tells you the fundamental note, and it's like, all right, cool, you want to do that, right? And I'm like, yeah, let's do that note. And then it tells me how far my lugs are from each other. So I can find the one lug that I want it to be tightened, or like one to be matched to. And then as I go around to each one, it tells me if I need to tighten or loosen the lug that I'm on to match the one that I set as the matching.
Okay, so if you've got 8 lugs, you say, okay, I want the 12 o'clock. Yeah. That's your main lug.
Yeah.
And then... Really?
And then they all match. And then as you're going through and you're hitting an inch out from each lug, so that way it tells you if that one's needing to be loosened or tightened. But it tells you, and then it tells you to like the frequency, like the hertz or whatever, of how close or how far it is decibel wise. And
okay, what's this thing called?
TuneBot. TuneBot Studio. I think there's like a TuneBot Gig and then a TuneBot Studio, and.
Now, I remember there was an article on Danny Carey that like his little drum, I think it was like a 10 or a 12 that he'd made as thick as possible. The ply was as thick as possible, and then his 18-inch was as thin as he could get possible, and then he would tune them to the song that they're playing. And I'm just thinking, man, I wouldn't even know if that's not a note.
I just never understand like the drummers that can tune, like when they're in the studio talking about, oh, what key's the song in? I want to make sure my drums are tuned to that. I'm like, what? That happened? You can do that?
Flat.
Yeah, that's mine. That's the only one I know. So, but more power to them. We're gonna be there someday because I got the TuneBot. You're getting it.
Yeah.
So at some point we'll be at that level.
Yeah, I'm sure I can make it sound good on post.
Yeah. Right. Well,
I got samples,
add some stuff, put plugins.
Yeah.
So
there's a lot of sometimes you hear those drums when we go to, and it's usually amateur. I don't think I've ever seen any professional ones, probably because but you hear them, and you're like, oh, that's doo doo. Oh, that's doo doo.
Right.
So I guess maybe it should be important.
Tuning and yeah. So I've valued it this last week. It took me a couple decades, but I'm starting.
Hey, you're getting there.
Yeah, right. Better late than never. So and actually, it made me so happy because I was like, wow, drums sound so good when they're in tune. I practiced for the first time. I think I was telling you when you got here. I've probably me and Ashley lived at this house for like 10 plus years, and I've never played the drums like here. I've never had them set up to practice. Yeah. Like I've never practiced, and that's embarrassing. But with it now, though, and the fact that they sound good tuned, I've practiced 3 times this week.
That's a big part.
First time ever. I'm patting myself on the back, but hopefully that also helps me like get to be better. That's the other goal.
Yeah.
Now that I can tune them, maybe I can be better at drums. So
where's the fun in that?
Well, that's a good point.
I'd have to say, just thinking about it, the best ones that I'd heard is recorded the Dudikoffs when they did one of their albums. Toms. Anyway,
yeah. Funny, good sentence. Yeah.
I mean, they just sounded so good. They're so clean. And he had it because it was high. Because I think it was a 12 maybe, Tom, and it was tuned high in his floor tom. But man, they sounded so good. I'm not the biggest fan of high tuned ones, but
when you get it right, though,
you're just like, ooh.
Yeah, when it gets dialed in. That was the thing my trumpet player used to do for me. Our Ben Sanchez, he has an ear. And he plays drums too. But because I didn't know how to tune anything, he would tune all of my drums for me. And it was always the best. Like whenever we'd have a big show, I'd buy new heads and I'd show up an extra hour early so that way I could be like, hey, Ben.
So how often do you buy new heads? Do you replace them?
Now, not so much anymore. I... Probably when I break them. Yeah, that's about it. Which doesn't happen as much anymore either. But
so I also see you're playing there's a Saluda. Is that what they are? Cymbals?
Saluda cymbals. Yeah, those that company's been really cool. They're out of one of the Carolinas. Now I can't remember. South or north? I want to say north is where they're out of. But it's just a cymbal manufacturer on the other side of the U.S. And I'd heard of them 5 or so years ago. And at the time, I was just about to do a big old tour with the Maxis. We were going to be doing the run with Suburban Legends and Real Big Fish. And it was like a 30-day from West Coast, East Coast. So I was like, wow, this looks impressive. How many companies can I hit up with this list?
On the way.
Oh, yeah, just to see if they'll be like, wow, you're famous or something. And like, let me give you things. And it totally worked because, yeah, Saluda was like, hell yeah. You're like, they had tiers. And the way they work is like tier 1, 2, 3, and 4 as their like artist endorser give back or whatever. And so they were like, oh, man. You're a tier 3 drummer in our book, like
for real,
yeah.
4, son.
So, well, I was like, yeah. What is it? Why not a 4? Do you know who you're talking to? And that email never got sent. But the one where the 3, I was very excited, and it was like way cool because the cool thing about them is like they're cheap as it is, like as far as like how much they're charging for a cymbal, like compared to Zildjian or Sabian. But then in addition to that, they have this cool thing where if you can catch the crack before a ½ inch, you can send it back, and then they'll ship you a new one for free.
Really?
So like forever. And I have done that so many times. I don't know how many times I've replaced the crashes. The ride I've had since day one. But the 2 crashes that I go back and forth, because they have different models too. So I have a couple Earthworks up there, but they have a Decadence series and a Mist X series and a few others that I really, really like. And you know, they get hit a lot, so I crack them, but I catch them before that ½ inch, and I keep the boxes that they ship them to me in, and then I just send them back whenever that happens. I'll usually wait until I crack 2.
And now, are you paying for shipping?
You do pay for shipping, just on the way there, though. And they'll still ship it for you free on the way back.
How long are you out a cymbal in this process?
It does take a month, but that's when I was like, wait, I should get other cymbals with my tier 3 and like not have to worry about that. So that's kind of what. So that's why I wait until I crack 2 because I have another set in the garage, kind of waiting. So that way when that happens, I'm not out, and then we're good to go.
So just looking at them, they look like they would be not only the color, but a darker sound of a cymbal.
These ones for sure. Drier. They're a bit drier. They also have like a really cool sustain to it, and I don't know if that's because of the lathe finish that they do. There's this cool lathe bullseye look that they have on the top of it, and so it just either adds to the sound or maybe it's just part of the finish. But they do a lot of really cool things, like just in terms of finish. They have custom colors. They have like this green thing that they do to it to where it like looks like rust, but it's not gross, ugly brown rust. It's like cool green rust. Good. Like, yeah, it just looks cool. So I don't know what it is.
Oh, kind of like that copper when copper's distorted kind of a color?
That makes sense. Now you say that. Yeah, something like that is what it ends up kind of looking like. So it's this really cool finish. And so, yeah, they're a great company. And anytime I've emailed them and said, hey, I cracked another thing, I'm going to...
Like I said, what were you doing?
Exactly.
What were the conditions?
Never mad. They're always like, send it on over. We'll figure it out. There was a time when I had my hi-hats early on. and I couldn't get them to be crisp. Like they were not flat. Like I eventually that's what I figured out. Like I put them on the ground and they weren't flat, and so like they were getting this weird buzz whenever I would have it closed. They weren't sounding closed, and I emailed them, and right away they were like, "Oh, just send it back. Super sorry. We'll fix it for you." And then and I was out for however long it took for them, but they were really quick with the response, and as soon as I got it back, the problem was gone. Like whatever they did to it just made it work, and they just relayed whatever the part that was uneven, and beautiful. So
if somebody wanted to buy some, you're not going down to Guitar Center to buy these, or are you?
No, I don't think you could go to the Guitar Center. I know that they have a website, and now I should look it up ahead of time. But it's like, because it's not saluda.com either. They definitely have that set up on their like Instagram, Facebook type stuff, but their website is, well, they do have a Saluda Cymbals website, but Drum Gear Online is the place to go to buy it. Drum Gear Online. But
got me curious. So I built the drum set that I got years ago. And, I just was browsing around, finding some shells and all that. Mm-hmm. And I want to say that it was from Saluda because that sounds real familiar. Okay. That's who I got my shells from.
Oh, okay.
I think. I'm making that up.
I didn't know they were into that either. So that's cool.
Well, this was, 2010? Oh, I'm going to have to look because that Saluda sounds weird. Because I remember thinking, that's weird. Because it was something cymbals.
Yeah.
But then they had shells, they had lugs, they had all the stuff. And so that's where I got it from. Because it was cheaper than a lot of the other places. So now I'm kind of curious if that was it.
I wonder now. You'll have to let me know. But it is a great company. I like them a lot. And then, like you said, too, like just cheaper than anywhere else. But that warranty where, like, literally you could have guaranteed for life your cymbals as long as you catch it. And there's been times where I didn't catch it before a half inch, and they're still cool. They didn't give me one for free, but they were like, well, we'll give you like however much off. Yeah. And then even if it's not a Saluda cymbal, like if you have cracked cymbals, that was how it started too. When I sent them every cracked cymbal that I had when I first got signed up with them, and they probably took off like $200 off my first order from sending 4 or 5
So I've got some Zildjians
cymbals
at home that are cracked.
Yeah,
I could say,
send
hey,
those.
Really?
For sure. I mean, I don't know if they would want one if it gets cracked all the way to the bell. They still, because I think what they do is they cut it around and then they have a shop at their location. And
like grind it down or something?
They'll make a splash out of a crash type of thing, as long as it's big enough. Like if it's too big of a crack and they can't make anything out of it, then they don't do anything. But
I'm curious though.
But yeah, I feel like that is something that they would do. They would take whatever crack cymbal you have and give you some money for it and send you some new Saludas on the way. And yeah, it'd be nice.
All righty, well, thanks for joining me. We'll do this again and we can get into more fancy shenanigans.
Hope so.
But thanks for talking about your school, because that's, like I said, that's one of the things my brother wanted to do. Just talk to people about what they do for work, how they got into, why they're doing it, what it's like to do.
Yeah. I know that probably wasn't the original intent of our conversation, but I don't know how we got into that. But I'm happy that you led me there. So
to me, it's just, I don't know. I mean, like music is a big part of people's life. Like you've been playing drums, but there's more to people's life than just the drums that makes them who they are. And so whatever comes up, I don't care.
Well, cool.
We'll go with the conversation.
Well, this was fun. I'm hoping to have another one soon.
All right.
Thank you for having me, Jeff. Really appreciate it.
Well, have a good afternoon.
You too.